Hi, everyone. It's Mimi, and I'm back with another very interesting guest. All my guests, of course, are interesting, but I find this man very charming. Say hello, John.
It's a pleasure and thank you. I find you very charming, obviously.
Obviously, yes, we were flirting from the minute we met.
Oh, oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's
So
hard not
this
to.
doesn't matter about the age difference, and we won't go into that. But John Wang has a book called Big Asian Energy,
Mm.
exploring the cultural expectations and how to break free from self-imposed limitations. I like that. And he's known for his insights on communication, generation, uh, generational mindsets and personal growth. Yes, I can get that. He emphasizes the power of kindness and how small acts can transform lives. And I totally believe in that. So, John, what inspired you to write Big Asian Energy? And what do you hope your readers take from it?
Both great questions. I'll start with where I started. And I was born in a city called Taipei in Asia, and my family immigrated here to North America when I was pretty young. And being, growing up in a traditional Asian family, there were, I would just say, high expectations, which is, it's a bit of a stereotype. I will
Yes,
call that out.
yes, it is.
And I will also say, not all Asians are a monolith. This is a personal experience that I had. Um, and, growing up, I always had high expectations for, academics and work and everything like that. And I follow that path. I would say this lesson of, work hard, keep your head down, don't make waves kind of mindset.
Mm,
Um, I would say early on in my career, I started going to corporate and then went on to start my own business, running an education and consulting agency, and it did very well. And all throughout that time, my main focus was always on how do I achieve more? How do I increase my performance? How do I, keep working harder and harder? And it got to a point where I think that it's kind of like spinning plates. You ever see like circus act people where they are
yes.
have those bunch of plates on different poles and they kind of go around.
Mhm.
And I was probably at the height of my business success at the time. I was,
Plates.
making, yeah, spinning plates. I was doing a lot of talks. I was going to events. I was, running my own business. I was traveling. And at the same time, I was burnt out. I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it was that I was feeling the way I did. I felt really empty. I felt emotionally disconnected. I couldn't quite figure it out. But the only model that I ever had growing up was, well, if you're encountering difficulty, then work harder. So that's what I did. I just went, well, I must not be working hard enough because everyone else seems to be doing better and everyone else seems to be more successful. So I better just keep doing that. So around 2016 was probably where I had this moment that I would call probably the the moment that kind of saved my life, I would say. And it was a tough day. I was giving a talk on stage on performance of all things. And as I was talking, I could just feel this pain growing in my gut.
Mm,
And it was I had essentially ulcers, stomach ulcers. I didn't
mm,
realize at the time how much that was tied into what I was feeling. I just thought this was something, you take medication and kind of got over.
mm.
And as I was on that stage, I was, talking to the crowd of people, telling them how to be more productive and how to perform more. I felt so much pain that I had to stop and asked the host and the audience. I was like, "Is it okay if I sat down for a moment and talked to you?" And that's what I did. I sat down on stage and I was speaking. And truthfully, on the inside, I was actually sitting down because I knew that the pain was so bad that if I stood up, I would probably pass out.
Mhm. The
But what
doctor
was,
said you should stop
oh
altogether.
gosh, no, no. I mean, how could I? And
I know.
truthfully, at the moment, in the back of my head, I wasn't even thinking about, oh, maybe I should, end the talk a little bit early talk about the fact that, I'm driving myself a little bit up the wall
Yes.
or anything else. But
Yes.
all I could think of was, I can't seem weak. I can't
Mm-hmm.
seem like I'm taking a break. I can't slow down. I have to keep going harder.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I crashed. After that event, I crashed. I crashed, and everything else in my life started falling apart. I lost my relationship. My just I became depressed. I started wondering whether there was a point to any of this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I realized that something in the way that I was looking at my life
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really aligned. And
Mm-hmm.
ironically, I was there and I was still running my business, teaching people about performance and productivity and how to do exactly what it is that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I still credit this moment because I actually had a student at that time when I was giving another speech later on in that same time period who, when I was telling the story, pointed out and was very politely and very gently, and she was this lovely, girl who basically said, "But John, aren't you still teaching us to do the exact same thing that put you through what you just went through?"
Yeah.
And so that was when I realized something
Was
was
wrong.
deeper,
Off.
was wrong. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was the starting point of the book. And so I started doing research into I started doing therapy. I started doing research into all these kind of things.
Still in therapy.
Well, I mean, the healing is a continuous journey,
It
right?
is.
It's
Mhm.
a deep journey, and the healing we do is not just for us, but for those around us, and even for
Exactly.
our family.
Yeah.
But that was when I realized that something was, let's say, off. And I was
Mm-hmm.
remember looking at the people around me, and I was just wondering. I just said, "It seems strange. These people didn't seem to struggle. They don't seem to be, have the same issues that I was."
Mm-hmm.
And they're successful. They're breaking through their industries. They're getting recognized. They're getting acknowledged. They're getting promoted. So why was I burning out? And
Mm-hmm.
this is why it is the book. It's called an unapologetic guide to breaking, barriers in leadership, is because what I'm really talking about actually is because I'm a leadership coach. So I help people in, companies like Microsoft, Google, McKinsey, et cetera, become better leaders where they could speak out and they could be seen for truly who they are, and be more empowered and assertive. But
Well,
I
this
think
is your
that
second book. This is
no,
your.
no, this is yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
is this the big
yeah, that's
Asian?
right. This is the big Asian energy one. Yeah, that's
Oh,
the
it just read a
subtitle.
subtitle. Oh, it's a long
Yeah.
subtitle. Okay.
It's a long subtitle. Yeah.
Really is. I said, oh,
Yeah. I had a fight for that one with my publisher,
I
for a moment.
bet. I bet. They don't like that.
uh,
So you
because
wrote
I
the book.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think that they come from the same place, which is,
Yeah.
where are we holding ourselves? Um, where are we holding ourselves back out of that belief?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that experience changed your whole perspective.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It changed my life, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
I just want to interject that which I told you before the show, but I came from just very dysfunctional family. Father was an alcoholic. I married two very abusive men, not at the same time, one after
Oh
another.
gosh.
And I was doing things the way I was not taught. I had no coping skills. And
Mm.
finally, I became an alcoholic. And when I hit my bottom 33 years ago, I'm proud to say, sober 33 years. No, I'm wrong.
Congratulations.
Oh, it'll be 34 this month. I forgot.
Oh, congratulations.
Well, after a while, you forget about it because you just get used to it. But
Mhm.
why I go there is um, if I stayed in the bars drinking, I owned a bar actually. Uh,
Oh.
I would have never grown. The only thing that would have grew would be my depression. And I
Mhm.
might have committed suicide because I had been in that black place before. And
Mhm.
when I got sober, talk about turning points. At first, it was the sobriety and AA meetings and some counseling, but I had to go much deeper than that. And I went to treatment two more times not for alcoholism, other issues, one of which was family of origin. That's why I bring this up. And I did a
Mhm.
lot of work on family of origin. And then I didn't think I needed counseling for a long
Mhm.
time. And then 2020 knocked me on my ass because my husband has stage 4 Parkinson's and I
Mhm.
have an autoimmune disease. Plus, I was recovering from breast cancer. So we didn't leave the house for a year.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh
I
my
had to go
gosh.
back into counseling 5 years ago. And
Mm.
I loved it. I love her. I see her every 2 weeks. You know, I get to tell her all my crap. And then she'll call me out too and say, well, you could have said that a different way or, whatever.
Sure.
So I think we need
Mhm.
a very big upset sometimes in our life to
Mhm.
change what's killing us. Okay.
Mhm.
For me, it was I had a spiritual, emotional, physical bottom to go to rehab.
Mm.
No intervention. I just knew.
Wow.
And you had a physical, emotional, spiritual breakdown on
Sure.
stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Very publicly.
But I had,
Ironically, while trying to keep my problems secret.
everybody came to me for advice too. And here I was, a mess. But I wanted to show that it doesn't matter what the explosion is. There will come a
Mhm.
time, hopefully, when
Mhm.
something shakes you up, right? That wakes you
Mhm.
up. And for you, that was a physical thing mostly. So you wrote the book. You decided
Mhm.
to write this book. How long did it
Mhm.
take you to write the book?
I would say it took me about, I mean, a year or so to write the actual, manuscript.
Mhm.
Um, and really about 3 years of research that went in beforehand. It was a
Really?
elaborative process. I really wanted to make sure that the book didn't just represent me, but
Yeah.
rather the experiences of so many people that I was working with and talking to and had in my own workshops and clients over the years. So I hired a couple of research assistants, and I actually brought in a therapist to help me make sure that what I'm writing is based on evidence and that we have done research around this. So it was, I would say, all in about 3, maybe even 4 years now, if we, started in 2021, 2022.
And you were like still working on other things and pay the bills. You had to have a job, right? While
Oh
you're,
yeah, yeah. I was still running my business, and I still am.
yeah.
So yeah, but this was a very personal project. I think that
Yes.
was what it was for me.
Yeah.
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 And what you mentioned sort of in the beginning that there's like cultural expectations and
Mhm.
sometimes they're negative, sometimes they're positive. But, like I just did a talk show with someone on a book I wrote calling Unearthing My Irish Roots because my father was
Mhm.
adopted. That's a
Mhm.
totally different story after read that book. And I did not find out till after he died that he was 100% Irish. 100%. I did DNA. Okay.
Wow.
So I did this other talk show about that book, and we were talking about, and the man was Irish, how, yeah, like Irish are drunks. Like people hear Irish, well, you're alcoholics, you're drunks. You hear Asians, oh, they're overachievers, right? They're really, really intelligent. Like, so it could be a negative or a positive, but it's still not necessarily true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet those stereotypes still affect us,
Yes, they do.
right?
Absolutely.
There's a concept, and I talk about it a little bit in the book, is the concept of the model minority myth, which is exactly what you're talking about, this stereotype of Asians being, oh, we're overachievers and smart, and if we also have the stereotype of like the Asian parent who's going, well, you got to be a
Yes.
doctor or a lawyer to be accepted.
Yes. Hmm.
And because I was working in education and I had this consulting and education consulting business, I worked with hundreds of students who were from Asian families. I could say this: one, not a monolith. Everyone is different, lots of different parenting styles, stereotypes are stereotypes.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it was common enough that I was seeing kids being pushed to go into paths that they didn't have a say in, that they were being um, pressured to believe that their love, safety, and belonging in the family, or even acceptance in the family, was based on that performance.
And that
And
is
I got to see. Mhm.
almost like child abuse. It is. That's child
It's a big
abuse.
word, but yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
can
mean,
be.
you don't think of it that way, but it
Mhm.
is. And
Mhm.
so what did you do to help those students of yours that you saw that going on? Did you give them any advice or just there to listen?
I think that once I was going through my own transformation, I realized that there had to be a better way. And the
Okay.
truth is that I really do see that there are better ways. There are better ways that for, the belief underneath that drive to be pushed. I say it's really not the culture that is about overachievement. It is really, especially for people like myself or children of immigrants, a strategy for survival,
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
especially in the family.
I was always called an overachiever. We're going to talk about that. I was always called an overachiever. And the reason I was an overachiever was because I was a woman and
Hmm.
I knew I had to work harder, plus just something in me because of the family I was in. No one had ever gone to college or anything. And my parents stopped me from going to college, but I ended up putting myself through college at 28 years old with two children and no child support.
Oh, wow.
Because when
Now
you want,
that is an achievement.
yes, but when you want something, it might take you a while, but you'll get it. And I bring it up because there's such thing, and I think you mentioned, well, I know you mentioned it, toxic overachievement.
Yeah.
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 It's not so good to be an overachiever. And it took its toll on me and it took its
Hmm.
toll on you, right? So
Hmm.
let's talk
Yeah.
about that. How overachievement can be toxic.
Yeah. Achievement is great. Having ambitions is great. Everything that we talk about, especially, I think sometimes I want to make sure it's known that when I talk about these cultural elements, they're all positive things
Mhm.
until they stop being positive. Which is to
Mhm.
say, if we take a look at, let's say, achievement or perfectionism that is built from it, there is what we call maladaptive
Yes.
perfectionism. And maladaptive perfectionism, unlike true desire for achievement, which comes from there's a desire, something I want, it's in line with my values. I really just like am passionate about this. Toxic overachievement comes from if I don't achieve this, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not lovable. I don't
Right.
belong. And that drives so much anxiety and fear. And we think that that's a motivator. And we think that, well, we need that because that's what pushes us to succeed without realizing that, well, actually, no, that's what's keeping you from truly breaking through. That may get you to that middle section where you could just tell yourself how terrible you are, and motivate yourself to be like, wow, I need to get there in order to be better, but it might be what keeps us from truly getting our work out there or getting seen because that perfectionism can get so loud that it
Yeah.
actually puts us in paralysis.
And I know that for myself, when I finally did get a degree, and it took me a long time because, like I said, I had two little kids and
Oh
no
my
money
gosh.
coming in. I mean, it was crazy, but a lot of macaroni and cheese for dinner. Uh, thank God they liked it. But my first job,
Uh-huh.
a job that I never thought I would have, um, was teaching disabled people that were in a nursing home how to live
Uh-huh.
on their own. And they
Oh,
desperately
wow.
wanted to do that. Their families
Mhm.
did not want them to do that. They were afraid. I am talking about
Mm.
women with MS, men with TBI, all these things. And I love that job because I was empowering people to do these things. But the work environment, I was not used to this kind of work environment. I was used to um, what did they call it? The entertainment, the hostess, hospitality,
Mhm.
hospitality. I
Mhm.
owned two bars. I worked in bars. I was used to a different type of culture. And I got crushed. I got crushed because there was all this stuff that I wasn't used to, like politics, office politics,
Oh
and different
gosh, yeah.
things. And I wasn't used to that, and I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at it. And so, how do people balance like who they are, my
Mhm.
authentic self, with the need to adapt to that professional environment they might be in?
Mm. That's a great question.
Yeah, that
I
comes
I
from my
kind of
experience. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I kind of look at it as going, we all have different variations of how we fit into different places.
Mhm,
Especially for me, I was growing up in a place where, I had my, let's say, friends from my Asian culture, and when I was with them, we had different values. We understood each other different ways, and I spoke differently. And then I had other groups, and then you go to a professional environment and you perform in a different way.
mhm,
The question is for me is always, who are you at the core and are you in touch of that? In other words, where are you driving from? Are you driving from an external locus of control, which is say, I'm going to be what other people want me to be in this
mhm,
context? Or is it, I'm going to be who I want to be in this context? But of course, my languaging can shift to better allow the other people around me feel comfortable and feel at ease, or just making things go with more ease.
mhm,
But
mhm.
who is it that's the voice that defines it? Am I doing it for others or am I doing it for me?
Right, exactly. There's a show on right now called Severance. Have you heard of
Oh, I
it?
love that show.
Yes.
The innies and the outies. Oh,
This is exactly
let's,
sort of what we're talking about, right? So for anyone that
yeah,
doesn't know, this evil company corporation gives people a job, but they tell them, here's the catch. When you're at work, you will have total amnesia of your life outside of work.
yeah,
And when you
yeah.
leave the building, you have total amnesia of what you do at work, right?
Oh, yeah,
And I love that show. And it's sort of talking about what we're talking about. They're like two different people, and the
oh, yeah,
personalities that evolve
yeah,
from that are
yeah.
totally different, right?
I love it's such a great metaphor for the workplace.
Isn't it?
This
Isn't it? Yeah.
idea that we have two different self. We have our work self
Yeah.
that, fits in that environment. And, I just love the way that they satirizes all these little things, like the way they have a manager named Mr. Milchek, who's always got this perfect smile and his languaging is always so perfectly corporate.
Perfect. Yes.
But
Yeah.
then you get to see who the people are underneath, and it kind of goes, well, this doesn't really make any sense. And it
Yeah.
makes you wonder,
Yeah.
does the workplace that we have, the corporate culture that we did, does this make sense? Is this really what being a human feels like? Love that show. So good.
No,
Oh.
it is good. Yeah. It's almost as good as The Office. Did you
Mhm.
ever watch The Office? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I watched The
Now,
Office
The
like
Office came
45
out
times.
like 25 years ago when I watched it, and now it made a
Really?
comeback. Oh yeah, and
Oh my
I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
God.
That's where
Get
The
out.
Office is set, and all those things in The Office, exact, really Krispy Kreme donuts, the bowling alley, all the things in there exist for real.
Really? Oh
Cooper's
my God.
restaurant. And one of the times I was visiting home, there was a tourist and he was taking a picture of the Krispy Kreme donut shop. I said, you must watch The Office because he was young. And he goes, yes. And they have a walking tour I'm taking of all the places.
I
So
love it.
he said to me, why isn't the light flashing on the Krispy Kreme? I said,
Huh.
because it only flashes when the ovens are taken out of the donuts are taken out of the
Right.
oven.
Right.
I thought that was so funny. He didn't know that. I said, Jeff, the donuts are being taken out of the oven, then the light is flashing. So he had a little more trivia. Thank God. I
That's
don't know,
so
I
great.
don't know if you can see that. Let's see. Uh,
Oh,
no, you
I
can't see that. No, no, no. There it is.
The Office. Oh, I just saw it for
Yeah,
a
there it
glimpse.
is. There it is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to
self-guided
yes.
walking tour.
But yes, that was also, and that was 25 years ago.
Does Jim and Pam's like does the office actually exist? Can you go and see it? I don't think that's the same building, is
No,
it?
the buildings I show are there. They are the
Oh, they
real,
are actually there.
yeah, they're there, but they are different names. When they opening credits, when they show them driving into Scranton, that is actually Music Street, and that's actually what it looks like, and the buildings and
Oh, I
everything.
love it.
Yeah,
Right.
it's all authentic. And one last thing, and we're off topic, but I did a book signing. I went back home and I did a book signing, and I just missed one of the actors from The Office who was in town, and he had been in the coffee shop 5 minutes before my book signing. I was so mad. It was
Really?
like heavy set guy. I can't think of his character.
Kevin?
Kevin. Yes,
Kevin?
Kevin.
Yeah. Kevin
I'm
Malone. Oh.
so upset. I just missed Kevin by 5 minutes.
Oh, I love it.
So
Yeah.
getting back to reality here, actually, storytelling, like what role does storytelling play in leadership and personal growth? So we are on the right track here
Yeah,
because
absolutely. Yeah.
that is a part of it. Let's talk about
Hmm. Storytelling, I think, is there's studies that show that people retain lessons and understanding of something 22 more times deeper in understanding and retain information 22 more times more when
that.
something is shared as a story.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, we are storytellers. We all are.
I
We
am.
connect to other humans through
Yes,
narrative. It's
yes,
how we build our understanding of ourselves and the people around us. And there is your story, there is my story, and then there is our story.
yeah,
So there's Mimi's story, there's my story, John's story, but then there's a story of you and me. And
yeah,
we don't really always think about how stories exist in our mind and the way that we tell who we are as that character in it.
yeah.
Sometimes we are main characters, sometimes we see ourselves as side characters. And the question is just how do we view the relationship that we have with others in that collective narrative?
Well, I'm a little bit different because I moved here to West Palm Beach 21 years ago, and I wrote my book 5 years ago, my
Hmm.
my first book. And people that know me here didn't know me before were shocked because I led so many different lives in that book. They
Mm,
could not believe the situations I was in. I
mhm,
mean, I was involved with gangsters. I was a welfare mother going to college. I had an abusive, stalking ex-husband who stalked me. I had all these scenarios, right? And
mhm.
um, they said, oh my gosh, right? And then when I wrote this book about all my medical problems, a physical therapist that read it, a young man, he finished reading it and he said to me, I'll never look at you the same again when you walk
Oh.
in the door because I know all the body parts that are missing and all the things you went through, right? So, like, one more. I recently started a second podcast called Soul Realignment, which is
Oh,
about
I love it.
the many lives we live,
Mm.
lives we lived before. Now, say I don't want to stereotype, but I think being in Asian culture, there is some
Yeah.
lot,
Reincarnation is, yeah,
yeah, a
is a
lot,
part of the spiritual
yeah,
practices of many
yes,
different Asian
yes.
spiritual beliefs.
So we are working on that. She's reading me live for everyone to see and hear, which she never did before, this woman.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
I'm on my sixth life. And I'll say one
Oh.
more thing, then we'll get back on topic.
No, no, I want to hear more about this. I'm down. Tell me. I
So
I
my,
love I love talking about like
oh,
different
good.
spiritual beliefs,
We'll
and
check
I
that one.
think that I by the way, that just my own personal belief is that yeah, we do come back and we do
Yeah, I
relive.
always believe that. I always did.
Yeah.
And, it's called Soul Realignment with Mimi and
Mhm.
Aaron. So it's a different podcast. And she said you had six lives. Your first one was 200 AD. Wait for it.
Oh,
You were a female gladiator.
oh, cool.
Take that in.
Cool.
My personality. But yeah, so then each show we could go a little deeper. And she told me how many spirits I have around me. And she actually told two of them to leave because their job was done.
Oh,
And she
wow.
said sometimes spirit guides don't want to leave and they have no purpose, but they want to stay around you. And you don't need that. You know, it's like
Mm,
having five friends telling you stuff in your ear. You know what I mean? So
mm,
yeah, I'm sort of not the norm.
mm. But that's, I mean, I love the story about it.
Yeah, you'll have
Um,
to look
one
that
of
up.
my favorite stories. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called The Egg, by Andy Weir. Have you heard of the story?
Please tell me it. No, we'll see.
It was a short story, and it starts off as a science fiction story, but I love it as a modern metaphor for some of these spiritual beliefs. And it's the idea that it's a man who dies and comes into the afterlife, and he wakes up and he meets somebody and he talks to them. And as they chat, he discovers that, oh, like one, he's died, and that he can go back again. And so he's like, oh, so reincarnation is real. He's like, yes. And how? And he asked, who am I going back as? And he's looking at this, things, and he said, oh, you're going back as a peasant girl in this the Qing dynasty. He's like,
Oh,
oh, I'm back in time. And the story goes is that, well, you perceive it as time, but
mhm.
you just go back to all the experiences and the lessons that you need to learn until you're done.
Yes. Until you're
And that's
done.
the egg.
That's it.
And
Makes
I
sense.
just I love the story. It's just one of my
Yeah,
favorite stories
yeah. Yeah,
because I do think that, yeah.
people think I'm nuts, but then other people totally believe it. So it's like I'm having so much fun with this show,
Yeah.
and the fact that we started out with the female gladiator just tickles me.
Oh, that's such an interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
And the emperor at the time decided that there should not no longer be female gladiators because it just wasn't right to have women rolling around in the
Interesting.
mud. And I thought, there you go. There you go. We were discriminated against, job discrimination even then. Um,
Love it.
like it should be our choice. We want to roll in the mud. So we'd have fun at a cocktail party, even though I wouldn't be drinking. You
I'm
and
already
I,
having fun. It's
yeah, you and I would get along.
it's in the
So,
morning, and I feel like I should get a cocktail maybe, or at least a
uh,
virgin one.
okay. So now there's practical techniques, I'm sure, to like
Yeah.
if someone needs to improve their confidence and maybe their communication skills because they don't feel adequate in their professional settings. So, do
Mhm.
you help with that, or does your book help with that?
Absolutely. We map all three major things essentially is how the big thing is how do we speak more assertively for ourselves? Because there's different communication and cultural norms that might influence how we speak about who we are and speak up. There's this mistaken belief I think that people have is that a lot of Asian people are a little bit quieter or maybe shy or don't like to speak up, but it actually is a misunderstanding, I think, based on our culture is.
Yeah,
And
like
in my
self-serving.
culture,
Hmm.
yeah, it's very focused on things like, oh, you have to be humble, especially around elders,
Hmm.
especially around older people. And I've worked with people who said, I am so outgoing around most people, but when I'm with somebody who's older, I just clam up. I don't know what to say,
You don't do that
or
for me,
they
though.
Well, they're human. They're
Yes.
people just like
Yeah.
you. But
Yeah.
but it's so deeply conditioned.
Yeah.
So we talk about one thing, which is with the use of mitigating language in how we speak, which is how often we soften our language in our communication. And one of the easiest things we could take a look at in how we could increase our confidence and assertiveness is just by looking at how we're communicating. How often are we adding words like just or only? Like somebody asks you at a networking event, what do you do? Oh, I'm just an accountant. Why
Yeah.
just?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
or they don't know how to talk about their accomplishment. Just like, oh, we did okay. We kind of had this done and we achieved this. I was like, well, why not own that you did something that was really important and significant?
Exactly.
Bec-
Exactly.
because we have a natural conditioning to say, well, it's not okay for us to talk about our accomplishment. It's not okay for us to, it feels braggy. And it's not. It's just
Yeah.
different cultures.
I am again unique. My parents uh, said to me, like, if I'd come home and say, "Oh, I got this A on my paper," and the teacher said I'm so smart, and they'd say, "Don't blow your own horn," which,
Oh, we've heard that. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So now I blow my own horn all the time, and I
Hmm.
talk to everybody. And when I go in a restaurant, I make sure I know the waiter or waitress's name. Before my lunch is over, they will know all about my podcast, my YouTube show, and my books. I will have a business card where I have written their name on the top and mine on the bottom. I
Oh, I
am
love it.
constantly marketing, but I'm outgoing like that. I'm very outgoing. And not everybody's
Mhm.
like this, I know. Even authors don't do that, but I do. And I was in a laundromat because I had an
Uh-huh.
item that's too big for my regular washer. And it was a new one. They just opened it and they were from another country, but the son spoke English. And I said to him, let's do a commercial right now and I'll put it on YouTube. And he couldn't believe me. I just got my phone. I said, I'm with John and we're at such and such laundromat and you got to come here because they're wonderful. They're such nice people. And I did this commercial for him. And my husband's off in a corner saying, oh, I'm married to such a crazy woman. But I think that that's not blowing your own horn. And my therapist told me, you know what? Not many people do even talk to their waiter or waitress other than
Yeah.
to order. And
Yeah.
actually, you made that person's day because you
Sure.
humanized them, you saw
Yeah.
them, and
Yeah.
they didn't feel invisible. And I hadn't
Exactly.
thought about that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
question is always, are you bragging or are you sharing?
I'm sharing because
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like everything I've written and all these things I do are informative and are helpful, so I
Hmm.
want to share that. So let's talk now. This show is called Be Heard, Empower Yourself, which is what we're talking about. So, how can the average person be heard?
Mm.
Not me, not Miss Unique over here.
Well, if you're not already pulling out your phone shooting YouTube video advertisements at your restaurants,
Yeah,
I one thing we're talking about a work context, which I think is the
yeah.
most important one for people who are thinking, because the truth is that most, I would say even the people I work with who are pretty quiet, they're heard in their everyday life, but it's really at work that they're being let's say, undervalued or underseen. And one thing I always point out is that there's such a thing as strategic visibility, which is you don't have to always be speaking up or being overly loud. You could choose who needs to know the information. And we talked about storytelling as such an important, powerful thing. So I say, well, we should all have simple stories that we kind of keep in a little journal about what we've been doing. And in the workplace, I like to teach the acronym PART, which is just share your part. And PART stands for problem,
Mhm.
action, resolution, and takeaway. And this is an easy thing we can incorporate into our work because all throughout your day, I always say people tell people record, keep a little win journal. Keep a little win journal of all your micro wins. If something happened to you that was good recently, write it down in your journal so that you have evidence that shows how far you're coming. That way, we're not always so focused on where we're lacking. We're also focused on where we're gaining. Take a few
Problem,
of those.
action.
Mhm.
What was the R?
Result.
Result.
Yeah.
Resolution. Okay. And then
Resolution.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
So an
important.
example of this could just be, you're talking to your boss or you're, taking a walk together through, at the whatever water cooler or even sharing your story with a friend. And they're asking, hey, what's been new with you? And it's just, oh, a couple of weeks ago, we had one of our clients who, was really giving us some issues. And this is
Yeah.
what I did. I sat down and I took a look at, why he was, unhappy. And I realized that he misunderstood some of the communication that we had. So I took the proactive initiative to reach out to him and say, hey, let's have a chat. And, I took action and
Yeah.
we resolved it. And he was really happy. So my takeaway from that is whenever someone's unhappy, make sure they're heard first. So
Yeah.
when we share that, it doesn't sound like we're bragging, even though what we're sharing is a win, because we're also sharing a lesson and
Yeah.
we're telling it as a story. So that could take off some of the pressure around, oh, I have to always be talking about how great I am all the time. Oh gosh, that's too much. Well, no, share your part, share your story.
Yeah. That's great. And that's a good way to end this because John has another gig after this. So we have to go. But I don't want to let him go because I could talk to you
Oh,
an hour.
this was such a fun conversation. I'm so glad we talked about severance and
Yeah.
past lives and your
And
journey. Oh, so
we
many
did it
great
all
parts of this.
and we got it all in 45 minutes.
Oh, we're efficient like that.
We're very efficient. We blend well together, that's for sure. So I'm
We
glad
sure
you
do.
had a good time. I always have a good time when I do these.
This
I
is
love meeting
great.
people. I love talking to people, as you could see, but
Uh-huh.
I love when other people get something out of it. And those same waitresses and waiters have came back to me and said, "Oh, I watched this YouTube show. It was really something I needed to
Mhm.
see." So it's good.
Mhm.
I'm glad. I'm
I love
making
it.
my imprint in the world. I'm leaving my legacy, whatever people think
And
about
that's
that.
it. I
Yeah.
love that. And I think this is such an important thing is what are we leaving behind? Because I think
Yes.
that's a lesson we don't really think about enough. What
Yes.
are we
And
leaving
I'm
behind?
teaching.
What's the
I always
impact?
wanted to be a teacher, and I'm teaching.
Oh, you'd be a great teacher.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming, John. I'm going to have you
Thank you so much. I would love to. Let's do this again. Let's have
We'll
another
do this
chat.
again. I love it. All right, everybody. John's leaving us, but it was wonderful talking to you and
Thank you
have a
so
great
much, Mimi.
day and
Yeah,
just be
thanks.
yourself.
Uh, and absolutely, if you want to check out my book, it comes out May 27th. Big Asian Energy, anywhere you buy books.
All right, it'll be on the show notes. Thank you.
Thanks so
Bye
much,
bye.
Mimi. Have a
Bye.